after my husband's funeral, a 40-year-old stranger walked into my home and told me her 10-year-old son was my husband's child, and as inheritance, she would be taking half of everything he left behind. She even produced a will. I looked at the document, I looked at her, and I said very calmly, "Oh, I see." And then I tried very hard not to laugh. Because this woman, this confident, well-prepared, thoroughly mistaken woman, had made one small fatal error. She didn't realize that my husband and I had a secret that made her will biologically impossible. My name is Ruth. I am 65 years old. And 1 month after my husband's funeral, a 40-year-old stranger walked into my home and tried to steal my life. Now, she stood on my porch, dripping wet from the rain, looking around my home like she was already measuring it for her own furniture. "My name is Kim," she announced, not even offering a handshake. "And I have some news for you. My 10-year-old son is your husband's child. So, as inheritance, I'll be taking half of what he left." She reached into her bag and produced a document. "Here, it's all in the will. He left instructions. I looked at the paper. It looked official. It had his name. It had a signature. And then I did something she didn't expect. I didn't even get angry. I said, 'Oh, I see,' and tried to hold back my laughter because this woman, this stranger, had made one tiny fatal mistake. She claimed my husband fathered a child 10 years ago, but my husband, God rest his soul, had a vasectomy 40 years ago, right after our second child was born. He hadn't been able to father a child since 1984, so unless her son was a time traveler, she was lying. And I was about to teach her a lesson she'd never forget. Let me back up. My husband and I were married for 42 years. We built a beautiful life. We raised 2 wonderful children, Sean and Yvonne. When my husband passed, it was devastating, but we were prepared. We had a simple will. Everything to me, and then to Sean and Yvonne when I'm gone. We had no secrets. My husband was a man of integrity, and biology was a fact he couldn't change. 1 month after the funeral, I was still sorting through his things, feeling lost, when a young lady showed up at my home. She said her name was Kim. She was dressed in cheap clothes, but acted like she owned the place. She pushed past me into the living room without an invitation. "You must be Ruth," she said, looking at the photos on the wall with disdain. "He never mentioned you much. Said you were difficult." That was a lie. We were happy. "I'm here for my son's share," she continued. "He's 10, needs a stable home, school fees, medical bills. You wouldn't want your stepson to suffer, would you?" She handed me the will. I put on my reading glasses. I scanned the document. It was poorly typed. The signature looked shaky, nothing like my husband's steady hand. And the date? It was dated last year. "Miss Kim," I said calmly, "this document says my husband acknowledged your son as his child last year." "Yes," she snapped. "Finally did the right thing before he died." "Your son is 10 years old?" I asked quietly. "Yes. Born in 2014, she said sharply. "Why does that matter?" I lifted my teacup slowly, mostly to hide my expression. I did not respond to her question. I thought to myself that my husband had a vasectomy in 1984, and unless medical science had changed dramatically without informing the rest of us, this woman had made a terrible mistake. There was a 30-year gap where biology simply said no. She wasn't just greedy, she was bad at math, and she clearly didn't know my husband's medical history. Oh, I see, I repeated. Well, Kim, this is a serious matter. We can't just settle this over tea. I knew the moment she gave me that fake date that she'd trapped herself. I just needed Mr. Campbell to be the one to slam the door shut. We need to involve the lawyer. Mr. Campbell, do you know him? Of course I know him, she lied. He handled the private arrangements. Wonderful, I said. Let's go see him, right now. I wanted to see how far she would take this lie. We arrived at Mr. Campbell's office 20 minutes later. Kim strutted in like she was collecting a lottery prize. I followed quietly, carrying my purse. Mr. Campbell, Kim announced before I could speak. I'm here to finalize the transfer of assets for my son. Ruth was just stalling, but I told her you'd speed things up. Mr. Campbell looked bewildered. He looked at me. Ruth, what is this about? This woman claims my husband had a secret son, I explained gently. Born 10 years ago. She has a document here. I handed the paper to Mr. Campbell. He read it, his eyebrows rising higher and higher. Miss Kim, he said slowly, this document is not valid. It's not witnessed. It's not notarized. And frankly, the signature is a poor forgery. It's real, Kim shrieked. He signed it. He loved my son. Ma'am, Mr. Campbell said, taking off his glasses, his will is on file. It leaves everything to Ruth, his wife. There is no mention of a child. And even if there were, we would need proof of paternity, a DNA test. Kim laughed nervously. DNA? That's unnecessary. Everyone knows he's the father. Look at him. He has his father's eyes. Actually, I interjected softly, my husband had brown eyes. Your son, from the photo you showed me, has blue eyes. But genetics are tricky. However, vasectomies are not. Mr. Campbell paused. Vasectomy? Yes, I said, turning to Kim. My husband had a vasectomy in 1984, after our daughter Yvonne was born. He was sterile for the last 40 years of his life, so unless your son was conceived via time travel or a divine intervention, it is biologically impossible for my husband to be his father. The room went silent. Kim's face went pale, then red, then pale again. That's a lie, she stammered. He told me he was fertile. He said it was reversed. Did he? I asked. Strange. He never mentioned it to me. And his medical records, which Mr. Campbell can access right now, show the procedure was never reversed. In fact, he had it confirmed twice in the 90s. Mr. Campbell picked up the phone. Shall I pull the records, Ruth? Please do, I said. Kim jumped up. This is a trick. You're trying to cheat my son. No, Kim, I said firmly. You're trying to cheat me. And you did your homework very poorly. Mr. Campbell didn't need to pull the records. The look on Kim's face was confession enough. Miss Kim, Mr. Campbell said sternly, submitting a forged document to claim inheritance is a felony. Fraud. I suggest you leave now before I call the authorities, or we can pursue this legally and you will be liable for all legal fees plus potential criminal charges. Kim grabbed her fake will. Her hands were shaking. You think you're so smart? She hissed at me. But you're just a bitter old woman holding on to money. I'm not holding on to money, I replied calmly. I'm holding on to the truth. And the truth is, my husband loved me. He loved our family, and he didn't have secret children because he couldn't. Go home, Kim. Raise your son with honesty, not lies. She stormed out of the office, slamming the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. Mr. Campbell sighed and picked it up. I'm sorry you had to deal with that, Ruth. Don't be, I smiled. In a way, it was comforting. It proved that his secrets were all safe with him, and that no one could tarnish his memory with such a clumsy lie. I went home that day and made myself a proper cup of tea. I called Sean and Yvonne and told them the story. We laughed until we cried. Kim's son, whoever his father really is, deserves better than a mother who uses him as a pawn for greed. And my husband, he deserved better than to be accused of fathering a child 3 decades after biology said stop. Mr. Campbell called me 2 weeks later and said, Kim apparently is a con artist. She has access to files at the morgue, tries to cheat widows. He asked if I would like to pursue fraud charges. I declined. Maybe the next widow will do so. Greed makes people careless. It makes them forget details. It makes them think everyone else is as foolish as they are. But us elders, we've lived long enough to know the facts. We know our history, and we know the truth always comes out. If someone tries to rewrite your past with lies, don't panic. Just check the facts, smile, and let their own stupidity do the work for you. This is the Elder Story Corner, where we learn that integrity is the best legacy we can leave behind. If this story made you smile, share it with someone who needs a reminder that truth wins every time. Until next time, know your facts, trust your history, and never let anyone cheat you out of your inheritance.